We're here today with Tom McAlister of Tomsco Investments to visit a little bit with him about his entrepreneurial journey and story. So, Tom, just I guess if you can briefly give us some history on Tomsco.
Okay, thank you. When I got out of Texas A&M in 1970, my dad had started a business back in the late 50s, and we were the Chevron gasoline distributor for Chevron USA. And he died 1 year before I graduated from A&M, and I had the privilege to come back and keep the business going after he had passed. And that lasted until '89, and I was able to sell out partially to my partner. And at that point, another good friend of mine, we had started a little company called Tomsco Investments. And what it is, we buy residential properties. We do some commercial, but mainly residential properties, and we remodel them for resale. And we've been doing that for nearly 30 years, or a little over 30 years. And I was fortunate and blessed to be able to find a new endeavor after we sold the distributorship back in '89. And along the way, I had some bumps in the road. Got into computer leasing because I was involved in another business called Abilene Furniture Leasing. We had 4 stores in Waco, San Angelo, Tyler, and Abilene. And that's kind of where I was fortunate enough to learn the leasing business to a degree. And then as a result of that, the buy and sell of the residential properties kind of led into me realizing that I could also do the same thing with houses on a lease purchase type basis. And I started doing that about 5 or 6 years ago. And that evolved. We still do the residential remodeling for resale, but on my own, I started another little endeavor through me personally to do notes on residential houses. And that was a little niche that I found through another guy I used to do business with that has enabled me to stay active because I'm in my early 70s now, and I need something to do to continue to make money. And out of those 3 endeavors, you know, the oil distribution and I was also involved in another retail shop for 25 years, or 20 years actually. So I learned a little bit about retail. My partner, she knew how to run a retail decorating studio, and that went for 21 years. So I've been blessed to know something about distribution on the wholesale level. And then I've had some experience with retail. And then, like I said earlier, we got into the residential remodeling, and then finally the selling of notes for people that really needed housing that couldn't qualify for loans. And that's was some of the things that I was able to learn when we did furniture leasing, because when we leased furniture, during that process, I was able to learn how to extend credit to people that didn't have very good credit. And I'm not an expert in any of these things, but I've been able to learn from other people that were. And it's been a good journey, and but it evolved over a period of 40-something years to where I've now got some ability to continue finding niches in the market, because that's what we did with furniture leasing. That's what we were able to do with my dad's business. That's what we were able to do when I got into the retail. But those things eventually will catch up with themselves, because other people can find the same niches. And if you're not able to be flexible and to continue that process, you can be doomed for failure. Because I've had some failure along the way.
If I can take you back to, you said you were going to graduate, you're a year out from graduation, A&M. What is your degree? Yeah.
Well, I got a degree. It was in the ag school in sociology and economics, because at that time I was going to try to be an urban planner, which required advanced degrees, and I'm not the greatest of students. And unfortunately, my dad died my senior year in college, so that negated all that. But it worked out for the best, because I owe so much to my dad, who started the company, that was able to keep me evolving and find these other enterprises that I've finally become pretty good at, because I've had so much experience along the way.
And that's adapting and just things that you go into, it sounds like you hadn't planned on, but then it's given you an eye for things that are opportunities too, it sounds like.
Well, it never works out like you think it will, but you've got to be open to the different possibilities that come along the way, because you can get sidelined, and it can put you into bankruptcy. And I've been nearly into that situation a couple of times. That's why I have these hairs that have turned gray over the years. But I have been blessed, because you've got to be flexible, and you've got to have some ability to be creative. Mm-hmm. And to adapt to the marketplace.
So you've also mentioned partners along the way. So tell me a little bit about how do you find these relationships and partnerships, because that seems to have been a theme.
Well, glad you asked. A lot of it, I've been involved in civic work, and I met Scott, my partner in Tomsco, through the Abilene JCs many years ago. And you've got to get out, network in the community, and the best way to do that is to get active in civic endeavors. And that opens up a whole different area of friendships that you can develop over the years. And that's kind of how I've also been blessed and been able to do that.
So tell me about, you've had ups and downs. So what keeps you moving forward? What keeps you from letting failure get the better of you, if you've had some of that along the way?
That's a good one. Well, I've always been motivated. My grandfather had a finance company in Waco back in his earlier years, and he was one of my mentors. And maybe I got some of those genes. My father was also an entrepreneur that taught me some good things on how to be. I don't know. I've always had instilled in me the will to be as prosperous as I can. But both of my father and my grandfather, they were very humble, and they always instilled in me to not be a showboat or try to go out and tell everybody how smart you were, because that's the way they operated. They were under the radar, and I'm not a promoter type. It's just it's hard to explain. I just have I guess, inherent ability to want to try to make money within a reasonable, I don't think of myself as a greedy person, but you gotta pass on what you can to the next generation. I do have a son, and hopefully I'll have some things left over to pass on to him. I think that's biblical. And that's what motivates me to continue to not have to rely on someone else or any, except for Social Security, any government situations that I have a problem with. And that's another thing that motivates me, is to try to make it on my own as much as God will allow me to. And, one of my favorite scriptures is 1 Peter 5:5. God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble, and I feel like I have been blessed all these many years by not trying to be too, by having humility. Because I used not to be a very humble person when I started out, but I was fortunate enough to get a good start thanks to my father allowed me to inherit the business that gave me a start. But you can still do it without that advantage if you just stay with it and try to, look for any opportunity that comes along and not get ahead of yourself. Because every time I did that, I ended up getting kicked in the pants. That's been a real thing that I've had to learn, is to be more patient. And because God, you gotta wait on God to show you which way to the next step, and not get too far ahead of the game, or you will get burned.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Those are some diving into the attitudes and mentalities and all that seems like have served you along your journey. Tell me a little bit about skill sets. What are the skills that you feel like being an entrepreneur have served you, that you've had to either develop or that you were able to just bring to the table naturally?
I think the main thing that I've been able to do is to try to be as organized as I can, because if you're not well organized, you're going to have a lot of problems. And I'm going to have to put a plug in for the E-Myth one more time. It's a book that I read several years ago about how to become an entrepreneur, and the basis of that book is to be able to manage money, be able to manage your marketing, and to know something about finance. And if you can put money management and marketing, those are the three keys: money, management, and marketing. Took me a second. And if you can, nobody has got that ability to do all three, but if you can rely on other people that have that expertise, and you can put it together, or have the insight to put those three things together, then you've got a chance at having some success. But if you don't do those three things, money, management, and marketing, it isn't going to work. But I've had to rely on other people that haven't got that expertise, but I've been able to organize those three things to move forward.
Mm-hmm. So this kind of maybe two questions in one is, in the broader sense of identifying opportunities as well as identifying the kind of people that you need to surround yourself with. How do you go about making those decisions, and have you learned how not to make them even?
Well, some of it has to do with luck, blessings, but you gotta be at the right place at the right time, and you gotta keep showing up. My son, who's a minister, is also another one of my mentors. He told me years ago, he said, "Dad, 85% of life is just showing up. And if you keep showing up and have some ability to realize that there could be a market for something," and that's how I got into to be able to put people on notes for residential purchases, because there was a need there. A lot of people that didn't have credit, that wanted to have home ownership, that had been renting properties without building any equity. It took me several years to figure out that there could be a niche there, and I've been able in the last, actually 5, 6, 7 years to realize that's a market that I've had to evolve into, because that's what I needed to keep. I needed to keep active, and I needed to keep the income stream coming in.
Good deal. Well, what's the, you're always looking for other opportunities and things, you said, even, what did you say, 74?
Well, when I started,
No, how old are you?
well, I'm only 72.
72. So, you're still looking for those opportunities and, things to make money, but, just tell me, I guess Tomsco is still your main thing that you do, and what are your plans for it, in the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, it hopefully will continue to operate as long as I'm alive, because I don't intend to retire. I had another mentor of mine, it was an uncle, that he stayed in business until he was 80, and he stayed active, and taught me that that's what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you, I don't know, a lot of people like to retire, but they've got the income to retire, and I don't. I want to have enough income left over to pass on
Mm-hmm.
to my son, and then hopefully his next generation. That's one of my main goals.
Good deal. Well, thank you, Tom. We appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing more about it at our coming presentation.
Thank you.